Why does one small house key explain so much about Generation X? Before smartphones existed for location sharing or for parents to text every 10 minutes, the house was empty. The TV had only a few channels. The phone had a cord. The fridge had whatever was left. No one was tracking them. No one was coming to entertain them. No one was asking how they felt every hour. So that child learned something early: how to be alone without falling apart. The latchkey child was not just a kid with a key. It was a childhood pattern that quietly built independence, suspicion, problem-solving, privacy, and a kind of emotional toughness people still see in Gen X today. The shocking part is not that Gen X became independent. The shocking part is that independence was not taught to them. It was left in their pocket. Many cultural writers have described Gen X as the latchkey generation, because so many children came home to empty houses while parents were still working. This did not happen for one simple reason. Divorce became more visible. Dual-income households became more common. Mothers entered the workforce in larger numbers. After-school care was not as organized or expected as it is now. BLS data shows that the labor force participation rate of mothers with children under 18 rose from 47% in 1975 to a peak of 73% in 2000. That shift changed childhood. A kid could leave school, walk or bike home, unlock the door, make a snack, watch television, do homework, ignore homework, get bored, get nervous, solve small problems, and wait for an adult to return. Nobody called it a psychological experiment at the time, but for many children, that is exactly what it became. The old stories can sound funny now. Riding bikes until the streetlights came on, heating food without asking permission, watching whatever was on because there were no endless options, playing outside with no adult standing over the whole thing. Still, latchkey childhood was not pure freedom. It was freedom mixed with responsibility before a child had words for either one. A medical review on latchkey children noted possible positive effects such as learning independence and responsibility, while also warning about loneliness, boredom, fear, accidental injury, and other risks when support was not strong enough. That balance matters. A Gen X child could feel proud of being trusted and scared of being alone in the same afternoon. The empty house could make the kid creative, but it could also make silence feel normal. Over time, many learned to treat discomfort as something to manage privately, not something to announce. No mobile phone changed the entire psychology of the experience. Today, a child can be tracked, called, texted, reminded, located, and reassured within seconds. Gen X did not grow up inside that kind of constant connection. Pew Research reported that its first teen cell phone survey in 2004 found 45% of teens had a cell phone, and smartphone ownership among U.S. adults was only 35% when Pew first measured it in 2011. In other words, the core childhood of Gen X happened before families could monitor each other all day. If a bike broke, the child figured out the next move. If the door was locked and the key was missing, panic had to turn into a plan. If something sounded strange in the house, the first response was not a group chat. It was listening, checking, deciding. That kind of childhood teaches self-command, not in a motivational way. In a very practical way, stay calm enough to think, because no one may answer immediately. This is where the latchkey child begins to explain the adult Gen Xer. Many people from this generation do not like being managed too closely. They often trust action more than reassurance. A vague promise does not impress them. A person who cannot handle simple problems may irritate them more than they can explain. The reason is not always arrogance. It can come from early training. When a child spends enough afternoons alone, the brain starts building its own internal supervisor. Did I lock the door? What time is it? Is there food? Should I answer the phone? Is that noise normal? How long until someone gets home? These are small questions, but repeated often enough, they become a mental operating system. Later in life, this person may look calm during problems because the body already knows the sequence: assess, decide, Act. Adjust. The empty house became a classroom, and the subject was not math or reading. The subject was self-control under ordinary pressure. Boredom played a bigger role than people realize. A latchkey child did not have a screen ready to fill every empty second. There were fewer channels, fewer games, fewer distractions, and no algorithm designed to keep the mind occupied. Once the snack was eaten and the TV got dull, the child had to invent the afternoon, read something, take apart a radio, draw, build a ramp, call a friend from a phone attached to the wall, go outside, sit with thoughts, make a bad idea, then learn from it. That kind of boredom can be uncomfortable, yet it trains the mind to generate activity instead of waiting for stimulation. This may help explain why many Gen X adults still value privacy, tinkering, music, books, tools, long attention, and practical problem solving. Their brains were not raised on constant interruption. They had time to stay with a problem after the novelty wore off. Boredom did not always entertain them, but it taught them how to use their own mind. There is a shadow side to all of this. Early independence can build competence, yet it can also make help feel unfamiliar. A person who learned to handle fear alone may grow into an adult who struggles to say, "I need someone." A child who had to stay calm in an empty house may become a parent, partner, or worker who looks steady even when exhausted. Outsiders may call that strength. Sometimes it is. Other times, it is an old survival habit that never shut off. The same PubMed review that mentioned independence also warned that the effects of latchkey childhood varied widely depending on the child's maturity, family relationships, and support system. That point matters because this experience did not make everyone stronger in the same way. Some gained confidence, others carried loneliness. Many got both. The same key that taught independence may also have taught them not to knock on anyone else's door. That is why Gen X can seem so hard to control. Not because the generation was born rebellious in some simple way. The environment trained them not to wait for constant direction. Quiet houses, working parents, fewer check-ins, limited technology, and problems nobody solved for them created adults who often prefer figuring things out themselves. Give them a clear task, and many will handle it. Give them fake urgency, corporate language, emotional performance, or someone pretending to know more than they do, and suspicion comes fast. The latchkey child learned that adults were not always present, not always right, and not always coming in time. That lesson does not disappear. It becomes a filter. A Gen Xer may listen to advice, but blind trust is rare. They may respect authority, but only if it works. They may enjoy connection, but not if it feels like surveillance. Their independence is not a slogan. It was practiced in empty kitchens before anyone praised it. So the secret psychology of the latchkey child is not that Gen X needed no one. The truth is sharper than that. Many learned too early that no one would always be there at the exact moment they needed help. To survive that, they built someone inside themselves who could watch, decide, fix, endure, and wait. That inner system made them capable. It also made them guarded. It helped them stay calm. It made asking for help harder than it should be. Maybe Gen X was not the generation that grew up without care. Maybe it was the generation that learned to care for itself before anyone realized how much that would cost. Were you a latchkey child? And do you think it made you stronger, quieter, or harder to reach?